Hello and welcome to the Vagabond Way Podcast. The journey goes ever on with the long road. This episode, Nipples are sewed last week. Join the Long Road team for a chat looking back at our earliest musical memories and the first albums or singles we remember listening to or buying. We get the next entry in Kev's Camino Trek journal, and Steve is on the search for an extraordinary story of ordinary folk to tell. The Vagabond Way podcast featuring the Long Road is exploring the world of the troubadour, the adventurer, the vagabond. The world isn't beige, it isn't processed, it's authentic, it's rich and it's real. And if those are the sorts of sentiments that make your brain light up, then hop on board. We are embracing all of those things. We're celebrating all of that, and we'd love it if you joined us on the journey. Greetings, I am Chris the Bish Leiden. Thank you for stepping into the weird and wonderful world of the Long Road. Plenty of content to get through on today's show, so I'll just do a quick reminder about the Festival of the Artisan coming up in precisely 1 month from today, if you're listening on the day this podcast comes out. Friday the 26th and Saturday the 27th of March, festivaloftheartisan.co.uk. The final lineup, including 4 great acts in our Artisan Club of Emerging Artists, has just been announced, so check it out. The Long Road, we're on Saturday night, but there's great music on the Friday night, Saturday afternoon and the Saturday night, so get involved. Get your backstage passes to get free goodies from the acts, discounts with our sponsors The Sausage Man and Deventio Wines, and some free merchandise as well. Head to festivaloftheartisan.co.uk/box office to get your backstage pass today. Limited number available, so don't delay. On to today's podcast. Some usual nonsense to begin with, but then a look at some of our musical memories and influences from when we were younger. I'm going to hand over to me. Greetings from the Long Road. You join us again, the three of us together, for another of our digital chats. We've got Kev at home in Spain. Hello, Kev. What language this week?
Vastanoto.
It rings a bell, that, but I'm not sure I know what that is. What language is that?
Well, it's actually Finnish, but it doesn't mean hello. It means reception.
Right. Well, a reception's a sort of hello, isn't it?
It is.
Receive you into my presence.
Yes.
If you'll pardon the expression.
I know 3 words in Finnish: Vastanoto,
Right.
Kurma, and Kiitos. So that means reception, cream, and thank you.
Well, that's all you need. And we've got Steve at home in Derbyshire. Hello, Steve.
Eka shega dra.
Right, what language is that, Steve?
Well, that's Hungarian.
Oh, really?
That's Hungarian, which is, very related to Finnish, apparently. So
Yes, I actually read that. I read that somewhere, yeah.
It actually means cheers.
Oh, well, cheers, mate.
Eka shega dra. Yeah.
Today we're thinking back to our upbringings, our musical childhoods, and thinking back to the first music we remember, I suppose, whether that's the first music in our heads that we were played when we were youngsters, or perhaps first album or first single, whatever we remember buying. So, Steve, you seem to have a strong memory of something from when you were young.
6 or 7, there was a record player in the house. But the records were, they were useless, really. They were cracking songs like My Boomerang Won't Come Back by Charlie Drake.
Hello, my darling.
Yeah, hello, my darlings. And then there was My Old Man's a Dustman.
Classic, yeah.
He wears a dustman's hat. So they were very early memories. They weren't even funny the first time you heard them, but that's all we had. So we listened to those.
Do you know what, though, Steve? I've always been in search of a good core blimey trouser.
Core blimey. It's not. Yeah, what's the joke? Something about got toadstools in a dustbin because there's not mushroom inside.
Yeah.
John Lennon would be turning in his grave. But then actually, the first song I can remember, we wouldn't have had it, so it must have been on the radio, was a song called Venus in Blue Jeans. I could remember hearing it. And it's that melody, which is 1,000 melodies wrapped into one melody.
Was that Mark Ryland?
That was Mark Ryland in a bit in Britain, yeah. And I just like that kind of sound. So that was, and the other one that I do here, which I played to death, which was my cousin Carol gave me Telstar.
Yeah.
By who are they, Kev? Who were they?
Oh my God.
We can all sing it.
God, who was
Tornadoes.
it?
Tornadoes, yeah.
Tornadoes. Joe Meek
Tornadoes,
production.
Yeah, Joe Meek thing, written in his toilet.
In his
or
bathroom.
something, the echo, yeah. Yeah, they were my first ones. And it's funny, the melodies are big, strong melodies, those two.
My earliest was probably, I was told that I stood in front of the TV shouting Wonderful Land at it, wanting to hear the Shadows tune, which I couldn't pronounce.
Yeah.
Wonderful Land. And then the next things I remember was having a few pennies and going to the jumble sale as a kid, not only buying an actual record player for a couple of pence that was ancient, but also buying 5 singles for like 2 old pence each. And they were, let me think, Stay by the Hollies, Suku Suku by Nina and Frederick, that edgy pop duo. She Loves You by the Beatles, and Needles and Pins by the Searchers, which is bizarre to think that I would then end up working with them, bizarre really. And then one of those Top Pops, a 7-inch EP with 3 tracks on each side, which were cover versions of things like Groovy Kind of Love and what have you. But the first proper single I bought, which was very uncool at the time, I suppose, but was Tweedledee Tweedledum by Middle of the Road, who also later on became great friends. What I used to do with the Middle of the Road single, I'd flip it over, and they always had really fabulous ballads on the B-side that they wrote, where they didn't write the A-side, a bit like the Sweet. And there was a song called To Remind Me, which was an absolutely beautiful B-side. And it was such a pleasure to me, many, many years later, to meet Sally Carr from Middle of the Road and say, Sal, I loved your B-sides. And she was absolutely over the moon. She says, oh, do you think so? And she was like really, really, really chuffed, And yeah, they were quite special to me. Talking about you, Steve, actually, one big memory for me. You recorded the first Wishbone Ash album on a cassette for me.
All right.
And I had an old Grundig mono tape player. And I remember driving down to Bournemouth with my parents on holiday, and I had this, and I would listen to the track Blind Eye over and over again. I adored it. Yeah. So there's some of my early musical memories.
The musical memories, they do sink in, don't they? So
yeah.
I think, if I remember rightly, the first album that I had when I was young that I remember listening to over and over again would have been, forgive me chaps, in the year 1990. And I think the only reason I remember the date is because the year is built into the lyrics of the opening song on the album.
Yeah.
And so the album is Flood by They Might Be Giants.
Oh wow.
And the opening track is a little 25-second number, which is just a sort of a little chorus singing the song, and it references in there the year 1990. We had the tape version, we had the CD version.
Very clever band, They Might Be Giants.
Yeah, and I was 6 at the time, and I've got older siblings. There was a lot of older sibling influence on this and what I was listening to, really.
Yeah.
But my parents as well. I remember my dad really liked this music as well, and listened to it obsessively for months and months and months. This album, and then for whatever reason it fades away, and then you don't listen to it again for a long time. And I found the cassette probably 20 years later, maybe even 25 years later, and this when my car still had a cassette player. Put it in the thing, and it was all still there. I could sing along instantly with all of it. There's something in this stuff, and whether it's because I listened to it a lot when I was a certain age, or whether it's something in the mechanics of the songs that they wrote, that they're really clever songwriters, that something in there stuck, and I can remember it all. And even now, I can go from each track to the next track. I can start singing the next song at the end of the first one because it's just built into my brain. Why is the world in love again? That's the opening track. That's the opening lyrics to it.
Yeah.
Why are they marching hand in hand? Why are the ocean levels rising up? It's a brand new record for 1990. They Might Be Giants, brand new album.
So it's like an overture. Brilliant.
Yes, but before that, I guess the things that I was listening to all kinds of odd things when I was around that age and younger. For the ones that instantly spring to mind. Adam and the Ants.
Oh yeah.
We had, and these were records that we would put on, and we would play ourselves and bounce around the living room too. I think we must have had Agadoo on record, because I remember listening to that a lot as well, which is classic musical education there.
I'll just briefly say rest in peace, my old mate Alan Barton, who was responsible for that. Bless him. Yeah.
Alongside that, loads of classical music as well.
Yeah.
Vivaldi's Four Seasons were forever being played.
Yeah, I dipped into the classical genre a bit. I loved Mussorgsky, probably via Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Yeah.
The Four Seasons too. Always liked the planets, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fairly
All those
punter
things-
classical, but I liked it, you know.
I think all this stuff, it does play into it's all part of the musical makeup, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And I think, you know, when you get an album as well, I mean, I was earlier referring to individual songs, but I think when you get your first album, and it's a thing of wonder that's never left me, really, that sort of collection of songs that you can, even if it's not like a concept album, you still sort of delve into this group of songs, and it's a proper escapism, isn't it? You know, I bought The Slider by T-Rex as my first full-price album I ever bought. And
Yeah.
I absolutely adored it. You know, it was so mystical and weird. I mean, the actual music is actually fairly simple when you look back on it. But at the time, you know, songs like Rabbit Fighter and Lady Strange, you know, Baby Strange, all these weird titles and weird lyrics. You know, the most bizarre lyrics.
And things like that, it transports you in time. It takes you back instantly. It's like tasting something or smelling something that takes you back to a certain place.
Yeah.
Listening to music. And the great thing that I found with They Might Be Giants Flood was that a friend of mine also had the same experience. He listened to it. It was one of his first albums when he was a kid. And again, lost track of it for 20, 25 years. Found it again when I said, hey, I found this old album. And he said, I used to listen to that. I haven't listened to it in 25 years. And you have this shared experience of rediscovering part of your childhood.
It's amazing how they do that. I mean, I remember my late teens. My parents would be away every other weekend over the summer. I mean, what's not to like about that concept? And we had to make a few precautions, like not leaving too many empty bottles in the dustbin, because that would kind of
Give the game away.
give them. It was party time, Parties in those days, were more horizontal than vertical. That's the most significant cultural change. Now people stand up for parties, and sort of move around. But in those days, you basically lay down as fast as possible, and listened and drank a lot of alcohol and listened to these songs like Wishbone Ash,
I remember many nights when we used to just be flat out at Guinevere's, with those huge speakers she had, listening to like the first Sabbath album and Wishbone Ash and all that stuff. Yeah,
It does make me wonder right now. So in 20, 30 years, what will the children of today be listening to as their big thing? Is it going to be Baby Shark?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Every generation has its fair share of poo, doesn't it? When it got musical.
Oh
poo.
yeah.
It does,
And like all forms of poo, it sticks. It comes back.
Is that going to be this week's episode title? Yeah. Like all forms of poo, some of it sticks. Yeah. A bit like this podcast.
Now you're going to have to explain to the listeners what this reference is about.
What, the poo reference or the nipple reference?
The poo reference. Yeah.
Nipples were last week's, Chris.
Nipples was last week's.
Nipples were last week.
Listen, we found a way to the top that wasn't immediately obvious.
And I want a T-shirt that says "Nipples are so last week."
Well, maybe that's where we get the episode title 2 weeks in a row, including the word nipples.
There we are.
There you go.
I'm really excited with the Fest of the Artisan coming up very soon, to have been asked to write a song about someone else's story, and we've put an appeal out on the internet and all other places to ask people to send in great stories that are about themselves or their family or friends that they have, because I really believe that amazing stories are not the preserve of the rich and the wealthy and the noble and the great, but actually exist in all of us. The extraordinary stories of ordinary people have always fascinated me. On the road, I've met Billy the Kid's third cousin. An Australian local government officer who happened to know how to cook black mamba, a very poisonous snake that we had just found hanging in a tree next to the campsite we were staying in Namibia. Then there was the guy who invited me to join him in the world altitude line dancing attempt in the Alps, or the time I shared a taxi with an imperious but very gracious Indian lady whose stepfather turned out to be the great film director David Lean, or I've just reconnected with an old friend whose father had worked for American International Pictures and got him as a summer's job working as a kind of gopher for a very peculiar director called Ovidio Asinitis, making a film called The Cockroach That Ate Denver. It's not surprising that you end up with the belief that everyone has or knows someone whose life is full of extraordinary moments. My own family has become a bit of a treasure trove for my songwriting over the years. Again, not because there's anyone famous in it. In fact, my brother Michael spent 3 years investigating the family tree. Now, Michael, unlike me, is very, very precise and triangulated each piece of data to make sure it was reliable. And after a huge amount of work, phoned me up one day to say, "Guess what, Steve? Our family has achieved the statistically impossible." "What's that, Mike?" I said. "Well, I've traced us back to 1640 and no one of any note has ancestrally trodden on this planet on our behalf. We have no lords, no generals, no great. Nobody went down on the Titanic. Nobody did much at all. Stonemasons, shipwrights, miners, and cobblers all, the lot of them. If any family was every man or every woman, then surely it is mine." But then you dig a little more, and no family, no matter how lacking in blue blood or fame, is without story. And these, for many years now, have provided me with some of the best songs I've written. Take my grandfather, William Dixon Lynham, 5 nothing of pugnacious Geordie, of Swan Hunter shipyards, gob iron specialist, and composer of the best monologues in Wallsend, who kept his family alive in the 1930s, fixing radios and carving crosses for the local graveyard as he waited the long months until work resumed in the yards. And then on my father's side, with the 4 brothers, who all went off to war in 1914 and miraculously all came back in 1918. They survived because they were brilliant with their hands. They could mend anything. I wrote a song about them called They Came Home, and it did quite well. It was played a lot on the radio. But my cousin Vanessa said, "That's all right for the men, Steve, but what about Nell?" Nell was in the same picture as the 4 boys, a dour-faced woman in a nurse's uniform. Encouraged by Vanessa, I looked further and found one of the most remarkable people I'd ever come across. It seems she was a nurse on a hospital ship at Gallipoli, which, shortly after she left it, was torpedoed. And then she served at the Somme, and again, out for one night, escaped the shelling that obliterated the field hospital. A woman who, after 4 years continuous service, resigned, probably suffering from traumatic stress and exhaustion, and withdrew her resignation 12 hours later. A woman who kept a scrapbook throughout the war, which disappeared from the family about 30 years ago, and then miraculously in 2018 turned up in the Royal College of Nursing, where it became one of the 8 scrapbooks in a national exhibition of these incredible women. In it, the patients she'd looked after and the friends had all written her messages and poems and drawn her pictures. She died in the same hospital in Hampshire as David Walliams' grandfather, both shocked and traumatised to the end of their days. For her, I wrote this song. It is an extraordinary story of a remarkable, albeit ordinary woman.
So this song is called Don't Call Her an Angel, written by Steve Bonham and performed here by Sammy Carter.
Don't call her an angel, she's just a girl from the shires. Don't call her an angel in the flashes and the fire. Don't call her an angel as you're fading away, and you're looking so scared, she's got nothing to say. But hold your young hand as you face the long night, and cry for your lover in fast fading light. Don't call her an angel, she's just a girl from the shires. Don't call her an angel in the flashes and the fire. Don't call her an angel in this vortex of hell. Whether you'll see the morning, she cannot tell. As your eyes are closing, she whispers a prayer that someone remembers the red of your hair, the laugh of the summer, the song of the fields, the cut of the scythe that's never quite healed. Don't call her an angel in this vortex of hell. Whether you'll see the morning, she cannot tell. Don't call me an angel, I barely can cope when nothing remains, not even false hope. And all that I wished for I lost long ago, in the mud and the madness and the blood on the snow. Don't call me an angel, say something that's true, and let me to sleep that's long overdue. Don't call me an angel, I barely can cope when nothing remains, not even lost hope.
Hello and welcome to Kev's Cafe Corner once more, which we should probably consider renaming Kev's Camino Corner these days, because every week, if you've been a regular listener, you'll realise that you join me as I relive my journey, my walking journey from Santander to Santiago de Compostela on the Camino. And last week, dear listeners, you may remember I'd just crested a summit that gave me a view of the Atlantic Ocean once more. and the promise of the city of Gijon. And so it was that as the day rolled on Sunday, October the 11th, I began to make my way downhill, the Camino trail sometimes leaving the road and guiding me down tree-covered tunnels and narrow paths, following a babbling brook. It's a curious expression, isn't it? A babbling brook. It conjures up a brook that perhaps chatters incessantly about nonsense in an annoying manner, when a brook does nothing of the sort. It ripples and whispers across centuries-worn stones with a melody that soothes the soul. Eventually, I found that Camino miracle, a picnic table, and I sat and made a coffee while I watched an eagle swoop and soar overhead. Such simple moments with nature are a real joy. Apart from the early deluge in the mountains, the weather had held, but as I approached the outskirts of Gijon, the rain came once again. This time I had the opportunity, however, to get my waterproof poncho on in a bush shelter. This trip had certainly taught me how Superman must feel when he's pushed to find a phone box. Gijon was the first real city I'd been in since I started my journey, and as I moved deeper into civilization, it struck me just how alien I suddenly felt. Like some manic wanderer with a Gandalf fetish, my purple poncho billowing and glistening in the wind and rain. It was all I could do not to brandish my staff and bellow, "They shall not pass," to the bewildered onlookers. Not all of Gijon's residents were fazed, though. An old chap on a push-bike shouted across the road to me, "Are you going to Santiago?" I replied that indeed I was, and he raised his hand in greeting and wished me well. Then came a sprinkling of road magic. As I walked, I was pondering the possibility of getting a tattoo commemorating my Camino, when suddenly a couple on the pavement at a street cafe wished me buen Camino. The woman lifted both of her arms to show me her commemorative Camino tattoos. The road speaks to you. You just have to listen. Every person's Camino is different. No two are the same. Each journey is the lesson we need to learn. Even the one whose Caminos remain incomplete will learn something. The Boogaloo hostel, where I had booked to spend the night, is something else. Situated on the seafront, it has a cool, funky and relaxed vibe, the interior painted in cheerful yellow and white, and a giant wakeboard on the wall in reception for anyone to take out and use. The common room was like a home from home. A wickerwork cocoon chair suspended from the ceiling by a chain in the area where a beautiful bay window looked out with spectacular views of the Atlantic. And on the wall was a guitar. I was home. Next week, I decide to spend some time in Gijon. See you later.
Tragedy this week in the Bishop's Daily Bread. Had a rather active day one day last week where I made 3 things in the kitchen, at least 2 of which would be considered baking at least. First, actually a 2-parter, once again based in the ongoing adventure of searching for nostalgia. For years I wasn't sure what you called this particular pudding, but I found a recipe months ago in the first lockdown, I think, for something that I had at primary school. A chocolate pudding with, and I don't know why it was, but it was always with pink custard. And I've since learned that parts of the world call this chocolate concrete. A rather harsh term, perhaps. I mean, yes, it's a fairly unrefined cake, but it's not so bad as concrete. You know, yes, a thick, dense chocolate cake, sprinkled with sugar on top, which crusts over gently, not quite so much as a brulee, but on the road too. Anyway, I've always remembered this simple pudding quite fondly, and often wondered how to recreate it faithfully. I'm not 100% sure that this recipe is that faithful reproduction yet, but it is pretty close. Or it would be if I didn't accidentally leave the thing in the oven for twice as long as it should have been. I used the timer function on my phone, but this seems to have happened more recently. For some reason, the timer will just not go off. Or perhaps, I don't know, I'm using my phone at the time and bat away some notification or other, and accidentally I bat away this timer notification. Anyway, I ran to the oven as soon as I'd remembered, and to be honest, the cake barely looked any different to what I was expecting. But later, the first slice did suggest it was a touch overdone, but not irretrievably so. Anyway, so that was tragedy number 1, overbaked concrete. Number 2, later in that day, making the accompaniment, the custard, although just regular custard as I had no food colouring in. Now, I've made custard plenty of times, but now I think the last 2 times it's been an utter disaster. Perhaps my ease at making it the first however many times is now coming back to bite me. So that was tragedy number 2, overdone custard, slightly scrambled eggs. And number 3, I tried a new crumpet recipe, and it was a bloody disaster. I've no idea why. The theory was all good. I watched the video online, it worked there, my ingredients were all good, but somehow the result was just awful. But, just about inedible, actually. And it's rare that I make something inedible. I'll eat just about anything. But all these things, they make me think of, I don't know, any endeavour in life, really. Some recipe attempts will be simply overdone, a lapse, no biggie. Some will be scrambled egg, accidentally, a moment or two either way from spot on, finesse required. And some will be just unmitigated disasters, through and through. Perhaps it just wasn't supposed to be that time. And actually, songs or compositions or making music's like that sometimes. I've had plenty of overdone cake compositions before, just left too long, too much going on. Sometimes being in the studio is a bit like making custard or not making scrambled egg custard. A fraction this way or that way will make a huge difference. And yes, plenty of just unmitigated disasters, inedible songs, inedible compositions, which are binned immediately. But all these experiences add to the experience of life, musical and culinary. I was buoyed after these 3 disasters in a day, the next day to be making one of my favourite dishes, steak with peppercorn sauce, and I tried something brand new for the sauce, and for me, risky, and it really paid off. It was the most delicious version of that dish which I've ever made. And I don't know how many times I've made that dish in the past, but this new version is now in my toolbox. So I guess, stick at these things. I guess that's my message. Disasters and delights await. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening wherever in the world you are. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and now YouTube as well. The next episode will be out next Friday. Join us on YouTube for the Transatlantic Connection show and become part of the Transatlantic Connection movement. Head to youtube.com/thelongroadband. If you fancy buying us a coffee, you now can at buymeacoffee.com/thelongroadband. It's dead simple to just drop us a few quid to support what we do. It even accepts Apple Pay and Google Pay. Super easy. All of our music and merch is on Bandcamp, where you can help support a positive ecosystem for the music industry. Downloads, streaming, vinyls, CDs, the companion book, it's all there. thelongroadband.bandcamp.com. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/thevagabondway. Big thank you to our Patreons and a special shout out to Orla Flynn, James Lydon, Stuart Lydon, Yvette Lydon and Trish Taylor. Thank you for your ongoing support. If you'd like to support us, become a Vagabonder. You'll get free digital stuff and merchandise in the post if you want it. Help us create something different, something that entertains and something that inspires others. So join us on the journey and release the vagabond within. Patreon.com/thevagabondway. Thank you once again, brave adventurers, vagabonds and explorers, for joining us on The Vagabond Way. Remember, the world isn't beige. It's authentic, it's rich, and it's real. Embrace every last bit of it. Until next time, the journey goes ever on with The Long Road. Bye for now.